Hey everybody, this is Roberto from Phuc. It's a podcast about science, honest opinions, and the recipe of how to live your best life.
Yeah, so what we have is a reality show of startups, of living the human adventure, where we choose the road that normally is hard to choose for most people, and we show you that's not that bad. And then the road itself is actually much more fun, much more compelling, much more interesting. And in the end, you can look back at your life and you can like, wow, you can make these choices and it doesn't have to hurt. It actually is probably the better choice. And I want to dispel the fear that people have of trying something new, because again, just a recap of where the story kind of ended last time. Again, this podcast, we're going to talk about our life and how we led up to where we are, where we're starting some companies. But we like to kind of give you some background of who we are and some of the values and some of the lessons we learned along the way. Because as we know, it's hard. It's a hard journey. And hearing it from someone who has done it, some failures, some successes, but something that I've said that I think that a lot of people kind of mistake, and I kind of want to tell my own opinion of it, is like, you don't learn from failure. When was the last time you learned from failure? Think about it really hard, right? What do you think? Do you think you learn from failure?
I actually do.
Okay.
Like I'm more of a like glass half full kind. I'm more like not even half full, just like the glass just is. So like whatever happens to you, it's all part of the journey. Like whether it's ups and downs, and I feel like the best thing of failure per se is to actually like not have all this have been a waste. But I do get that sometimes, failure is just you messed up. Or like sometimes win, sometimes.
I honestly think that you learn something from failure, but you learn how to fail that one time and how not to fail the same way.
Exactly.
But let me ask you a question. If you had a word to spell that was super hard, like the word like onomatopoeia, you know what onomatopoeia is?
I do.
Okay, well, onomatopoeia is a very hard word to spell, but basically it's a word that sounds like it means, right? But to spell that word, how many ways can you spell that word wrong?
I had like the infinite word. Well, yes. There's like a bunch of ways you can mess it up.
Yeah, infinite ways. So that's spelled wrong the one way, and you tell me that's the wrong way to spell it. Did you learn something?
I learned that's not that like that path isn't the one to go to.
And that's what I mean, right? It's like the saying, like, oh, if you're rich, money won't buy happiness. Tell that to the poor person, right? Who would love to pay their rent.
Yeah, no,
or feed their kids.
Like I saw like those memes. They're like, it's way more fun to cry in a Maserati than to cry on a bike or on a bus.
Right. So like, failure is okay. You learn something from failure. Blah blah. That's not how it works in the real world. I mean, that's just something that you see in movies. It's fake. What you do is you learn from success. Let me show you how to spell a word. I show you how to spell it. You memorize it. You work really hard. You practice it, and you copy it, and maybe one day you can spell onomatopoeia.
But I feel like there's a type of person as well, though. I mean, like if a type of person just like fails, it's like you kind of keep getting up or you don't, and sometimes like it's that one mistake that ends up messing up your whole life. You just have like that one bad day.
Yeah, so you can learn how to get up, right?
Yeah.
So that's the same lesson you learn every time you fail. You learn how to get up, and you learn how to do better, and that's where we left our story. So we left our story with my parents failing, and trying again. And guess how they got the second trip to escape Vietnam? So the first time, just to recap, first of all, I didn't mention this in the first episode, right? But recap, I was born in 1976 during the fall of Saigon. And from the perspective of a refugee, how do I see, the world? How do I see Afghanistan, for example, right? How do I see that? And my perspective is like, America is the greatest country in the world. But yeah, anyway, I don't want to digress. But anyway, the story is my parents, right? They didn't actually have a full parent relationship with their parents, because actually both of my grandfathers were killed by the French. They were just rebels or something happened, and they just were executed. And that's that's what happens in Vietnam. You basically have this history of war, of family member being killed. It's basically a mess. And when you fail escaping Vietnam the first time, what do you think you have? You have nothing, but you learn how to get back up. And so my mom learned how to get back up. My dad learned how to get back up. We learned how to get back up. And guess what we did to get on the second boat? The first one we had to pay with all life savings. And you lose it all because you get captured and you go to jail. You lose all that money, right, that you had paid to go on that trip. What do you think my mom had to do, my dad had to do? Because you failed. You get back up, and now you don't have any money. What do you do? What do you think?
Well, what would I do if I had nothing? I feel like the only thing that I would still have is like some sort of like my health and myself. So I'd work it off.
Yeah.
Like be useful in some manner to the person that is gonna get me out of this situation.
Yeah, but you know what they did? It's really badass. They said we failed, so let me just do it to myself. So they organized the trip.
Okay, they became
yeah. So the way yeah, it's awesome, right? It's a hack. So you don't have the money, you organize the trip, you collect the money, you take the money, you rent the boat. It's like starting a company.
Yep.
And you can see I failed way more than my parents. I failed like 4 times. But you see that what I'm talking about, like they were successful because they get back up. And I copy their success. You don't succeed by putting your hands on someone else, right? Yeah. You do it yourself. You organize a trip. You become a leader, and then they were successful. Even though there was a lot of issues to get. Like I said, like recap. We got raided by pirates. You can look at that first episode. My brother almost died. But we made it to the country, and I copied their success. You see that? Coming back to that, like, what's the success? Well, the success is, why would you risk your life to go for something like that? Because the reward is so high, right? Why would the people in Afghanistan hang on to that plane and won't let go so they can go to America? And that's what happened when we evacuated Afghanistan, right? Because they can copy the success of coming to America. Immigrants everywhere are copying the success that they see from people coming to America and making something out of themselves. And we want to give that we want them to copy what we do, but everywhere else, but also in America, but also see that America is the greatest country in the world. I'm not just hyping it up, but I'm hyping that success, right? Comes from hard work, comes from opportunity, comes from taking risks. And I feel like I'm Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. I've won the lottery already because of my parents' risk, a successful risk, right? And everywhere else in my life, everywhere I take a risk, it works out eventually. Because you know why?
But you keep pushing until you get it done.
Yeah. How many people in Vietnam you think? Like 90 million, 70 million people. How many people try to get on a boat? How many people made it? How many people got in the refugee camp? How many people got sponsored and made it to America? Probably a couple 100,000, maybe. Yeah. But here, we won the lottery, right?
Yeah. But there are some factors that come into play that not everybody gets. Like it's just some things, right place, right time. It just happened, and that there is an effort put into it, but there is some randomness that I find interesting within the whole situations of everything.
It's very random, but the thing is, people escaping Afghanistan to go to America, Honduras, Mexico, and I think that I just wanted to show you, a lot of people are hating on America right now, but I'm saying people are still beating down the doors. You know what I'm saying? And you can copy success only. So we're going to give you the success, and the failure. So we'll talk about some of the failures and successes, right? So let me talk about my childhood successes, failures I've had. So I think for me, the biggest success that you can copy is that you have to live from a point of view that you're not part of the system. Okay? So here's what I mean. You come as an immigrant. You come to this country at the age of 4, like I did. And you just observe what happens. And you cut through all the BS. And I'll tell you some stories about immigrants actually people may not see, but it's actually immigrants are a lot more nifty than you think, right? We use the system, and we're not as poor and innocent and unknowing as you think we are, right?
No, definitely. and there's like some built-in resilience
Yeah.
that is incredibly handy for like anything you do in your future.
Right, right. But the thing is, we'll push the edge of what's possible because we want to take care of our family and make it the best for us, and we're crafty. But that's the same craftiness that you win at business, but also crafting a new way to do things, right? So if you can't, for example, like my mom said, my son can't go to school right now, but I'm begging you because I have no way to babysit, so can he go to school early, right? And you use a system, right? But then you can also use the system wrong. There's actually some bad things that go with the immigrant lifestyle. So for example, like there will be people whose parents are on, let's say, Section A or welfare, okay? And then you would basically have the kids know that. And some parents are so audacious, they'll even get divorced or just claim they're not married, so they have the single parent kind of stuff, right? And that's, for me, you know, for a lot of people, oh, that's fraud, whatever. For me, that's just the immigrant lifestyle. The immigrant lifestyle, like you're beat up in your old country, you're trying to fight your way, whatever, cheat call, whatever, to get to America, and you continue to do the same thing, but at a lesser extent. Like, but to some degree, you know, it's not that bad because the amount of money you cheat is not as much as the amount of money the rich people cheat, right? So everything, there's always a system where everyone's cheating some small amount. But for the immigrant parent who does that, their kids see that and they copy it. They copy it's successful for me to cheat, successful for me to go ahead and get divorced and do fake welfare and all this other stuff. And they use it against their parents, actually. So this is a real story. They said, if you don't let me play computer games, and let me go hang out with my friends, I'm going to report you to the police that you're cheating on welfare. Literally, right? But like that's
because you're being blackmailed by your kids.
Yeah, but that's a struggle. And like the thing is, okay. So there's actually pros and cons to this welfare, right? The pro is you get a lot of help. Food stamps, absolutely, it's really great. But also it's trapped to some degree. Because now you can kind of get along, you kind of muddle through life pretty well. You know, you can watch TV. I mean, this is probably very controversial, but the average person in the U.S. has one TV, has the internet, has a couple phones, you know, has a video game console, has the internet, has, you know, a bunch of stuff. And even the people who aren't so fortunate, you know, they have some of that too. But like,
well, the thing of education, right? Like it's part of the, like, it's the thing they say in Spanish. It's the pan y circo, which is basically you have some basic food and entertainment, and that will keep you happy enough to keep doing what you do.
Yeah, and I think part of it is also the system itself is set up so it doesn't need to change from that kind of system, and there's some abuses in the system both ways, right? From the immigrant class, but also from the policymakers who manage, like, let's say homelessness in let's say California, right? I think those guys get paid like six figures to basically manage the process. So but the thing about America is, like, we have a welfare system. China doesn't have a welfare system. Some of the other welfare systems in Europe are great, but I think they do too much because they tax you. So I think there's a balance to everything. But ultimately, you know, just going back to the story, like, so you know, I go to this country, just recapping what happened, and then I get invited to go to a really elite school. It's all boys, and then I get lucky enough to get into Harvard through my application, through my personal story. But I want to reiterate what we talked about last time, which is through affirmative action, through a university saying that you are worthy because not only are you smart, but I feel like you're going to do something with your power. I feel like the essay you wrote is the kind of person we want to invest in for America. And I want to reiterate that's a difference between a meritocracy and a system that looks at the whole person, right? And all this stuff, it takes time to pay back. I think it's starting to happen right now, and I think I just want to show that inspiration, but also kind of show the story of also you fail a lot, you have successes, but let me tell you the strategy of also how to fail correctly. Okay, and how you can actually fail and also still succeed. So let me talk to you about that in this next segment. But we'll go to college. Let's go to college. Okay, so I graduated high school. I'm an introvert. No girlfriend, no skills with girls. So I basically just mess around college. So the first lesson for you is, like, you get into a good school, it's just a rubber stamp you need. And to hear that from someone like who's hopefully successful, right? Perceived to be successful, hopefully, right? I saw that attitude right from the beginning. All my classmates wasted a lot of time on studying and stuff. I took 2 computer classes because I was already really, really good at computers. I did economics because I wanted to be the man. I didn't want to be run by the man. So I'll tell you some stories about my parents and how I came to that conclusion. So my dad was an electronic technician at a company. And at one point, he had to clean the parking lot. And he said to his boss, "Why am I cleaning the parking lot when no one else is cleaning the parking lot?" And he said, "No, just do it. That's your job." And that's not his role. But that's because he's a minority. He's Vietnamese. Okay, so that's one. You get bullied, right, by bosses who you don't think, deserve to be your boss. Maybe
straight up racism, right there.
Right, like, and then there'll be situations where like, okay, they do a great job, they get promoted, everything, great copacetic, and the company goes out of business. Nothing that they can do. They were the best employee at a company that just didn't make it. So
it doesn't exist anymore. That's sad.
Yeah. So what do? You just try to make a living, buy a house, and that's what I did. I just kind of like try to become economics, get a job where I make a hard case somewhere, be consultant, be whatever. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So for anyone to say that you know what you're doing, it's about being well-rounded, being a Renaissance man, like I said, trying to learn everything and just learn things you're bad at, or you think you're going to have to learn to be good at, right? So economics was the closest thing to business because I wanted to be the man instead of being, working for the man.
Just like a random employee, one more.
Yeah.
Like another piece of the machinery.
Yeah. So I'll give you another example, right? So when I was actually growing up, I worked at something called the Work Center. Okay, the Work Center is actually illegal child labor in the U.S. That's literally what it is. and other immigrant labor. So you would actually have these vans. They would show up in these neighborhoods, ethnic neighborhoods. You have young people like me who are like, 15, 14, not too young. And we'd go to these places, like in the burbs, somewhere hidden. I'm not going to tell you all the places. But there's an example, right? The Crown Royal cap? The Crown Royal drink. It's like a liquor. It's a very expensive liquor that costs like $100. Like it's a really beautiful.
It comes in a nice like a bag. And
that cap, that golden crown.
Yes.
Well, the child that put that crown to be painted, gold, was me. I would just put these crowns all day, like Laverne and Shirley in that show, and they paid like $5 an hour, cash, no taxes. Okay, that's one job. That's cool, right?
It is like seriously. How does this? It's a program.
No, it's just basically illegal work labor.
Yeah.
But it's still it's in the U.S. It's fine. That's how like illegal immigrants work in like the migrant fields here, right? But instead of migrant fields, I was working in one. Well, that's one job. That's kind of like the painting. I guess painting a decorative piece for a liquor. Another job was actually basically sorting brochures. You get those like the telemarketing and all the brochures you get in the mail, like the spam.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's sometimes an insurance package. There's like 5 things in it. Well, someone had to order those 5 things to be packed and then sent to you. So I was the monkey that did that. Another job was soldering. So you had to solder these circuit boards, and they had like you had to basically like move them around and all that stuff. So there's a lot of jobs I had. Another job I had was like working at essentially a CVS to basically do stuff. I did jobs that was inventory management, basically working at CVS. But I did a lot of odd jobs. I didn't expect to be where I am right now. I'll be honest with you, right? So the way you think about it, you won the lottery by coming to the U.S. You're good, right? Maybe your second generation can do a little bit better. But I said, I got to do better than my mom, right? My mom, the success was she took some risks. And I said, I'm going to take some risks at some point, but let me learn as much as I can. And then one day, junior year, I'm sleeping in my bunk bed. And my roommate, Wally, wakes me up and says, "Hey, Phuc, I got to talk to you about something." And I'm like, well, okay, what's up? I said, well, I got an idea for a company, and I want you to help me. And I said, of course, because this is the opportunity I'm looking for. because I wanted to be like, CEO of a company and do something entrepreneurial. He's like, well, what's your idea? It's like, those binders at the career centers when you look for jobs, for summer jobs and like full-time jobs. You ever notice that some of those jobs are missing? Like the way it works is there'll be binders. It's something called OCS, the Career Center at Harvard, right? And every week they would print the jobs and put into these binders. It's 1997, like the dot-com boom, right? 1997, dot-com boom. I was a junior in college. And he's like, if we put this online, this would work better. Because the reason why these jobs are missing is I think people are tearing it out so you can't apply. Because it's the best job, right? So it's like it's so competitive. Those jerks took the best jobs and tore it out, or maybe they're just too lazy to copy the information.
I'm just like, this is mine now.
It's mine now. Bye bye suckers.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was like, that's not a bad idea. And then my other friend Seth was like also in it. So Seth, Welly, and I were like, that's not bad. Let's start something. And so we started Crimson Solutions. Crimson is actually the brand for Harvard, so it's not creative at all. But the product, was nice. Yeah, that sounds like so. But the product was called erecruiting.com, which is kind of not bad. erecruiting.com, and
especially like back in the days, everything that had an E in front of it was like, oh my god, this is the future.
Yeah. So the number one thing I tell you, college students, young people today, is college is a free vacation where you get to try wacky things and get away with it. And if you fail, it actually helps you because it makes you look like a go-getter. So the worst, it's like, okay, pad my resume, the worst. See this, and like a lot of people are doing that in college right now. That's the best thing to do. Grades don't matter. I didn't go to class for like my senior year when I started my company. Basically, we started the company junior year, and it was really awesome because we would get all these free resources. For example, if you had to give a presentation back then, there wasn't like LCD monitors and all these things easily. You actually had to carry a projector with you and project onto a wall and give your presentation. And so we had the projector. We borrowed that from the Science Center and like we lug it around and we drive like to different colleges like Boston College, Tufts.
Yeah, that's the thing. They weren't small projectors back in the days, right?
Yeah. But they were some that were actually not too bad. The size of a suitcase. But the main thing is like we use the cute kid angle. You gotta use the cute. You're in college, you can call anyone you want because you're a cute kid in college, especially a brand name college like that. And we got so many meetings from these career center grandmas, right? Because these are older women who like to take care of kids. This career center, right? It's a really great job for some that kind of profile as well as men, obviously. But I think more like the mama bear kind of type. And I remember one time that we go to a presentation and they'd bake us cookies because we're so cute.
That's awesome.
And so it's so easy to book these meetings. And of all places, Harvard didn't sign us first. It was actually BC.
Oh.
BC, Boston College, yeah. And then
so Harvard didn't trust the own education they gave you.
No, it was a wacky idea. It was during the dot-com boom. This is like when Amazon started, when Google started a little bit later. I think maybe around the same time. But this is like the heyday before it blew up. Like right before it blew up. Like it blew up at like 99 or 98, like a year or two after we started. But here's some cool, interesting things to actually find out. First of all, it was Welly's idea. So it was his company. I was the CTO. And Welly was supposed to be the leader, CEO. But then we brought in these two Harvard Business School folks. A person named Chi, thank you Chi by the way, and then Henry Ellen Bogan. So Chi and Henry were at Harvard Business School, and they had somehow contacted us because they had a similar idea. And they said, hey, can we write a business plan with you and enter it into the MIT Business Plan Contest? And it's like, okay, great, free labor, free business plan, we're going to have to get funding anyway. And so we basically joined forces with Chi and Henry, and they were supposed to just help with the business plan and leave, right? So we go, right, and we build this product and everything. Actually, we build this product first. So let me start with the summer. We meet them like senior year. So let me start junior year. So junior year, we say, hey, let's do this. We said, I got to build the product. So we start building the product, we start selling some stuff, beta testers, all that stuff. Really, really amazing. And then that summer, we were able to get free office space from my dorm, Elliott House. So Elliott House is a dorm at Harvard, and they have a library that's pretty big. And my roommate, get this, my roommate Seth built the first Facebook for Harvard. Facebook. Yes, 1997. Yeah. Facebook was actually coded by Seth Sternglantz, my partner at Elliott House, in 1997, because he was hired by the headmaster of that house to code the Facebook for Elliott House. It was actually called the Facebook for Elliott House. That was the headmaster's project, not Seth's project. He was hired that summer to work on that project, and he gets to use the resources, including living there and using the library for free, and getting paid, to do that project.
Yeah.
So literally, Seth that summer, he was coding Facebook for Elliott House, where you can see all the people in your house and all the pictures and interact with them, but you can share photos and all that stuff that Facebook today has. Okay. But the origin story of Facebook, the origin story of Facebook is every house at Harvard had a version of Facebook that either they built or they bought or something like that, but you couldn't see all the other people in the other dorms. And that there was 13 dorms, or 14, I think it's 13 dorms. And you can see Mather, you can see Winthrop, you can see all these other dorms, and that's where the Winklevoss is. And later 2004, 2000 whatever, that's like 7 years later, something like that, right? Where Facebook was founded, because all over campus, every single dorm had a Facebook, and it wasn't Eric Zuckerberg, did not steal it from the Winklevosses. The Winklevosses stole it from Harvard. Harvard had it already. It was called literally the Facebook, right, of Elliott House, and every other dorm was called Facebook. And all they did was they just made one that the entire campus could share. Okay?
They just connected what wasn't
yeah, and the only reason why Zuckerberg won, because he was the first to submit it to the Harvard Crimson, which is the newspaper. And he beat the Winklevosses to it. But once he beat the Winklevosses to it, everyone on campus started using it, because everyone was already using it for their dorm, and it was just super simple, just do it. And he might have even, I think he might have done this, screen scraped the data and maybe even fed some of the data and fed it up front if he had access to the dorms. That would have been very smart of him. He did that, and I'm not sure if he did that, but my gut is he might have thought about that, and knowing Zuckerberg, he might have done that. That's cool, right? So
yeah, actually.
So my roommate basically did the Facebook that summer, and we were building Crimson Solutions and e-recruiting. And then Chi and Henry, we connected them in the fall. That's when they connected with us. We had a product already. We had a functional product. We had a couple of customers lined up. And they're like, hey, we obviously can help you write the business plan. It's good for us, for our class, and for us. So they did that, and we joined the MIT contest for business plans. And we got second place. So there's actually like 4 or 5 second places, and there's one first place. The first place was Zephyr, this company called Zephyr, that eventually got a lot of money, and then they epically bombed. But you can look up Zephyr, Zepher. But we were so lucky, because one of the judges, I can still remember, his name is Too Tall Don Jones. Don Jones. It's like, hey, my name is Don Jones. I'm one of the judges. They call me Too Tall Don Jones. This big Midwestern guy, very football player-like, because he was a football player, too tall, because he was too tall. He was Don Jones. He's like, I was one of the judges. I'm very impressed. How much you guys want? And I was like, $250,000? Deal. And he puts his hand out. And just like, I think he's from Texas or Midwest, or I think he's from Chicago for sure. But I'm not sure if he's from Texas. He played football in Texas. But he was like, deal. And he literally put his hand out. $250K.
That's awesome. Like, that's worth it.
And then 3 weeks later, I get a check, a regular check in the mail from Too Tall Don Jones. It says Don Jones. $250K. I bring it to the bank. This is my first check ever to start my career, by the way. Right. So this is our first funding, because all that stuff was free. We just free labor. We just hustled. So you put like
$250,000 is a pretty good first check.
Yeah, and then I bring it to the bank, and the bank's like, I gotta check this. So they call the other bank. They had to double check, and then they say, I would deposit this, but we may take a couple days for us to double check that this is a real check and this is gonna clear. I was like, why don't you just wire it, or like some type of certified check or something? But Too Tall Jones was that's how he wrote.
Yeah, no, I'm just happy he could have showed up with like a duffel bag with like full of like 20s. Like, there you go, $250,000. There you go.
Yeah, but
but that's awesome. Like it gets you started, right?
Gets you started, and then we kept going, and we kept growing, and we kept doing well. And Chi and Henry were awesome, especially Chi. And then they said, hey, let's go try to pitch. And they went pitching for us, and they were pitching for us. And then they basically got a deal for $2 million from Polaris Ventures. And this is where it starts getting messed up.
Well, it grew.
No, this is where it really messed up. Okay, here's where it gets messed up. So I tell you how Chi and Henry, right? They're supposed to help us write the business plan. And they're from Harvard Business School. And we're undergrads. I'm like 20, junior college. Welly's like 20, senior in college, 21. And at this time, it's not cool to have young CEOs yet. Maybe a couple here and there, but not quite the fad it is today, right?
Yeah.
So
they wanted the old guy.
Yeah.
The one with
but
experience.
maybe someone older, maybe someone like a business school, like Harvard Business School. Not bad.
Okay.
So during the fundraise, everyone thinks that Chi is going to be the new CEO. I don't know what happens. Miscommunication on Chi's part or their part, whatever. And then they give us the money. Like, hey, we'd like you anyway. But Chi, we thought we could. So the deal almost gets broken up because Chi's like, I'm not CEO. I just helped broker the deal. I get some shares of it, but I walk away. But I'm moving to Taiwan. We're getting married, doing other stuff, whatever it is. But these guys are awesome. So the Polaris Adventure is like, okay, great. We like the idea. We like the company. We like the business plan. Chi's not obviously very disappointed. So let's go get a CEO, fund these guys, and make sure these guys get a CEO that we like. So Chi helps us find a CEO because he feels bad. The VCs help as well. And then we end up hiring this person named Sharon. And Sharon's a great woman and wonderful and amazing. But she doesn't know much about the internet. And we hire her. And she does a pretty good cultural job. But she doesn't understand the internet because no one understands the internet, right? And she had done a very successful business doing essentially greeting cards. So she had a printed business where we printed greeting cards. And she did fantastic, millions of dollars, very smart. But, we got to $2 million, we ran it, we grew it to like 20, 30 people. We had like $1 to $2 million in revenue. It was going great, except for Sharon. Sharon just didn't understand. She brought in some other people. And we just didn't get along. In particular, Welly. The real idea behind this. The one who has the most shares. The one who we thought should have been CEO if Chi wasn't CEO. We actually even asked Welly, "Hey, you should be CEO." He said, "I don't want to be CEO. I thought I'll be humble. Let's listen to these investors. They know what they're doing, and bringing someone like 40 something, 50 something, they know what they're doing, and the humility killed us. Because had Welly or one of us stepped up, it would have been fine. Yeah. So we wasted a lot of money, wasted time spending, and then we were running out of money, but we had to fire Sharon. We fired Sharon. And I still remember, because the reason we fired Sharon because Welly left because of Sharon. They couldn't get along, and Welly's like, screw this, I'm leaving, and he bailed. So it's just me. Just like that? Yeah, it was a lot of fighting. I was there. I was like, I can understand why he left, because he felt like, it's his idea, his company, but yet he doesn't have the power to be CEO, and this woman doesn't know what she's doing. Whether or not that's fair or not to Sharon or whatever, that at that point it's like, okay, me and Seth, and we went to this office where the VC Polaris Ventures like, we love you guys, we love your idea, we don't love the situation. We don't love that the CEO is fired, but we think we can sell this company for $30 million or so and help you. You guys own like 10, 15% each at this point, right? 10%, 15%. I think 15% of that. You're going to be millionaires probably, right? They don't say it that way, but I'm thinking in my head, wow, $3 million, $4 million, and like, that's pretty nice.
We had a great idea.
Yeah, but how are we going to sell this company? We got the CEO who was fired, we're running out of money, we got 4 months left. And
that's like all the inner works of the company.
And he's like, yeah, maybe we can sell this company for you. Maybe. But today, we can give you $20 million. But we need you to merge with another company called Experience. And e-recruiting is a great software. Students love it. Career centers love it. But you're missing the content piece. So this magazine, this company that gives a free magazine, they stuff mailboxes with these magazines called Experience Magazine, and the Experience Magazine is supposed to tell students advice about where to go work and all this stuff. And if you combine that content with your great system where you can find jobs, and basically we power the career centers, we have a monopoly and this has always been the business plan. It's a 2-phase model. Phase 1, make a monopoly of all the schools, all the colleges. They have to use the Career Center to get a job. We did that. Check. We had like 30, 50, I don't remember exactly, but like, a fair amount, 50 schools out of like 1,000. So a couple thousand, right? But the big brand names like BC, Harvard, MIT, all that stuff. And some bigger schools as well. And each school is paying us like 10, 20, 30K. So we're making like 1 to 2 million. We're like a 20-person company, 30-person company. So we're losing like $1 million a year. Like we're making 2, but we're losing $1 million. We're spending 3. So not too bad. We're growing. It's a good story. There's a couple of companies that actually talk to us about investment and maybe partnerships, like the Chicago Tribune. So you may know the Chicago Tribune. They do newspapers in the U.S. And they talk to us, and we could have been bought by them, as well as Monster.com. You may know of Monster.com in the U.S. They're kind of dead now, but back then they were the people.
Yeah, I know, like Monster. What was that? We had Monster.ca and as well like Job Boom and all these places.
And then Yahoo was the .com. Yahoo's worth a couple of billion, tens of billions, and they had Yahoo Jobs, and we were talking to them. Oh. Yep. Yeah. And they actually Yahoo Jobs bought a competitor of ours. They could have bought us as well. So I mean, there was on the table. There was a chance. It was like probably like 70%, 80%. So that was my.
I mean, like you got big enough to want to be swallowed by these bigger people.
Exactly, and we had colleges that were brand name.
Being noticed.
Yeah. I mean, and we could have been, but this guy wants to give us $20 million, and only for like, how much he was. The company was going to be worth $60 million. The valuation 60. Okay. So basically, it's like I'm going to take 25% of the company, and give you $20 million, because I think the company's worth $60 million now. I'm going to value at $60 million. You sell for 30, I value $60 million, give you $20 million. Or value at $40 million and give you 20, it becomes 60. I think that was the number. It was like, I'll value at 40, I'll give you 20, we take 33% of the company, you merge the company, this person becomes CEO. She's very articulate, she's very charismatic, very pretty, very nice, very good leader. Jennifer Florin, right? She comes in, and Seth and I look at each other like, well, he's gone. She's gone. Me and him. Should we take the risk, or should we take the $20 million right now? What would you do, Robert?
Man, at that point, with the information that I have, I think I would have taken the money.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yep. Unless you're seeing like the poker face of this guy who's like, you can see that it's worth more, and then I'll be like, why is he?
Okay, let me tell you something else about background music, right? Some background information. You know a company called Akamai?
Nope.
So if you look up Akamai in the stock market right now, they're probably worth like a couple tens of billion. They were funded by Polaris Ventures. Okay. And you're like, and Akamai just went public around that time, and that was in that same fund. Basically, they invested like 8 companies, 7 companies. Like one of the 8 companies we invested in is worth a couple billion now. We believe that you're going to be the next one, and we're going to give you $20 million. And if they said that to you, think about would you think about it differently? Now that I've said that.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Well, maybe I should tell the story better, but that's exactly what happened. We have Akamai. We feel like this could be the next big thing. And it made a lot of sense. You had all the eyeballs. You had all the college students. And then if you had the content, they would stay there. And you can compete with Monster.com and basically become the job board for the world, for the college students first. Then you build that brand, and then the next job, and so on and so forth. But what do you think is wrong with that idea, Roberto? The second phase. The first phase was you build a brand at college level, and the second phase was what? The second job, right? What's the disconnect?
Get the word out.
The disconnect is there's a long time between the first job and the second job, right? So are you going to be logging to looking for jobs every day for 2 years while you work at your current job you're very happy at? No. You're going to look 2 years from now.
I'm happy. Yeah.
But that was the idea. It wasn't a bad idea. I mean, but I think, look, if you're 2021, someone gives you $20 million and says, hey, leave it in our hands. We just made $1 billion. I said yes, and that was probably, in retrospect, not a great idea. I would have gone with your impression, your first gut. And I actually was really 50-50, and it became 51%. And I think Seth wanted to sell. And I think I talked him out of it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that was the best thing, because I think had we done that, we would have had $3 million, and maybe more, at the age of 21. What would you do with $3 million at age 21? What do you think you would do with that money?
Had I had $3 million when I was 21, it would have been like, I would have partied so hard with half of it, and then the other half, I usually buy a house. I would have traveled actually a lot.
See, but the $3 million wasn't in my hand. The $3 million was a 70% chance, 60% chance you get it. Otherwise, you get zero.
Well, they were offering it to you. I mean, like it was.
You get zero, or maybe $3 million, or you get $20 million right now. 100%. You get $20 million right now.
Yeah.
And a chance. And a chance to be a billionaire.
21, I would have taken the 20 million right away. Like man, like you're 21. Like who cares? Like you have like the rest of your life in front of you. Your brain isn't really even fully developed yet. So like 20 million, give me that.
Okay.
It would have been like yes.
Yeah, and that's what I did. So we did that. We merged. We got 20 million. Guess what we did with the $20 million? How long do you think we spent that 20 million? How many years do you think we spent the 20 million? This is the .com boom, you may remember, 98.
Damn, like 2 years.
Correct.
Tops.
So we bought $1 million. You know Faneuil Hall in Boston? Do you know Faneuil Hall in Boston? Have you been to Boston?
No.
So Faneuil Hall is a very famous tourist trap, most expensive real estate in the city, and we rented the entire second floor of one of the buildings in Faneuil Hall. There's only like 3 buildings in Faneuil Hall. The entire second floor is $1 million a year in rent. We grew we grew from 20, 30 people to 120 people because we had 30 people. She had 30 people. We became 60 people, and then she hired 60 more people.
Okay.
Yeah, I was the CTO in name only, but we had another VP of engineering who was supposed to be better than me, and then all this other stuff. And Seth left, and then I was the last one to leave, like 2 years later, because I was like she didn't have the right ideas. She didn't want to listen to some of these ideas we had. And I didn't really have any ideas, to be honest with you. So it's not even fair to say that she would listen. It's just like there's just no clue, no nothing. And we spent $20 million in 2 years. And then I left because at this point I was getting paid $30K a year for the first couple of years, then $80K at the end. So like why would I stay? I can make more money. But actually, in retrospect, it wasn't a bad idea that I stayed, because had I taken the $3 million, I would be retired on the beach and not where I am right now, getting better, right? So sometimes you lose on purpose so you can win the bigger prize. And so I learned the politics of growing in a big company where there's a lot of bullshit meetings, a lot of people are sitting there, too much fat, just doing nothing, no ideas, exactly. and you have this talk about what we can do. Everyone's talking about how great we're going to be, but no one's actually doing it.
Well, that's the thing. Like when you have all these excess weight, they have to make themselves useful. So I feel that they start figuring out problems that weren't there that only they can solve. So it just complicates everything for no reason.
Yeah. And look, when you start a company, though, it's kind of your baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like a baby,
yeah,
especially definitely. When you code a lot of it. I coded basically most of the half of it. And the idea was, like, when am I going to leave this company? When should I abandon my baby?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very painful because I remember when I was like when we first started out, it was the best ever. I was on the balcony of this office space, reasonably priced. We were paying $8,000 a month, right? So instead of $1 million a year, we're paying $100,000, $90,000 a year, right? And we were lean. We had like a happy hour. I was on the back, and I was like, this is the best moment of my life. Remember this moment. I still remember it because I was just like, this is the movie I want to be part of. Because the way I explain it to my interns, to my applicants, to the people who are junior, is your first movie after college is your work movie. Right? You're going to be there 8-10 hours a day, and that movie you have to pick with discretion. And I picked a freaking awesome movie. Right? A movie where I was on an adventure, where I was faking till I make it. And I was really faking it. I'll tell you how badly I was faking it. You want to see how badly I was faking it. So I was learning Perl on my own. I was learning, all this code on my own. And I was like, senior year, I'm definitely gonna do this company. We just got we're gonna get funding probably, but let me go with some interviews, because I have never been to Austin, Texas. I've never been on a plane. That's how poor we were. Right? In college, I was cleaning toilets for money. I was like, right? We didn't even go to restaurants. I didn't go to a restaurant until I was in college. Like, that's a fact. Well, I haven't been to, so I didn't go to a plane. It's like, let me get a free restaurant and plane trip, because I heard they wine and dine you. So there's a company called Trilogy. I still remember it very clearly. And they flew me to Austin, Texas. It was amazing. They interviewed me for a technical interview. And at this point, I have only taken 2 classes, and I taught myself everything. Just like I taught myself when I was in 4th grade, and I just know I'm really good at it. I'm just natural, right? So then he asked me, this technical guy. It's great. The first round's great. Then they said, we're going to bring in the technical guy. So they bring in the technical guy, and he starts asking me all these series of questions. I'm like, no, I don't know this. But I just bullshit. And he's like, this guy's just making up shit. And I got rejected for the job. The only job I applied for, because I wanted the free trip. Like, I knew I was getting a job. But that's how bad it was.
He saw through you, though. He was like, at some point, like, okay, you don't know.
But the thing is, he was a bad interviewer because he didn't see all the stuff I was good at. He didn't see that I taught myself Perl. He didn't see that, all the things that if he did a code review of the code I actually wrote, because what he did was he asked about things that he thought I should have learned if I was a CS major. Okay. So that I think that's the mistake.
On the academic paper kind of side.
So a lot of people make mistakes because they try to correlate skill with grades. Going back to this whole college experience, I want to leave a note, and then I have to leave, we have to, leave some time for you to tell your story, and then from there.
It's been interesting. And
yeah, but I think one thought is that I didn't have good grades in college, B's maybe. Right? I didn't care. I cared about girls because I went to an old boys school, and macking and learning social skills and learning how to get out of my shell, which I eventually slowly get out of. It took a while, like 10 years. So even even after college, I wasn't so great. And then taking risks to learn things that I didn't know how to do and be good at it. Because I was bad at it. Because I had to try to be good at it, and over time I'll become good at it. So that's the only way you get good at it. And then the things that you're really good at, right? Just try to learn, expand it at the pace that you want, and never say no to someone. And never say no that you can't understand something. You keep learning. So I keep learning. I've learned so many things along the way. And I think the other thing I want to leave is, I think the secret power is to become a Renaissance man. Right? So what's a Renaissance man? A Renaissance man, a woman, is someone who knows a little bit about everything to some degree, where they're like top 2, 3%, 5%. And the way I describe it is, like, if you have, let's say, a bunch of dots, and the dots form a smiley face, and there's like 25 dots or 30 dots or whatever, how many dots that make the smiley face, and you can see all the dots, and you look at the dots, you're like, that's clearly a smiley face, right? But let's say you can only see 1 or 2 of the dots. What do you see?
Nothing, depending on what section you're looking at.
And that's life, my friend.
I know, definitely.
Yeah.
Like, it takes some time to get the bigger picture.
Yeah, because you follow the ladder. And this is what I'm talking about, risk. Let me think where I would be at 23 when I left Crimson Solutions. I was there for like 4 years. Junior year, I think 3 years after college, so maybe 5 years. At 24, where would you be? You'd be making some decent amount of money, being a mid-level coder or accountant or lawyer, whatever it is. You're on your way to becoming middle class. Okay? Look at what happened to me. Even though I didn't take the money, right? I said yes to everything. It wasn't even me. I rode some coattails. I learned a lot of stuff along the way. I didn't make that much money. But when I left, I was able to charge $150 an hour, $100 an hour. $100 an hour, right? $100 an hour is $200,000 a year, which is double my American dream. Remember back then, my American dream was I would want to make $100K, own a house, and I thought that was the end, become CEO of a company. And in 3 years, even though I failed at becoming a lottery winner and getting $3 million, I was much farther ahead than if I didn't say yes and take those risks. And do you know where my friends were at 24? From Harvard? exactly what I just described, somewhere in the middle. And I was at the top of my profession. And I was I was charging $100 an hour. I knew what I was doing. People loved me. Everywhere I consulted, people want to recruit me left and right. We'll talk about that later, but consulting is a good way to make a lot of money. But I'll tell you about how
networking.
Yeah, but also learn about all different industries, but it was also soulless. And I hated it. You know why?
Why?
Well, let's say I consult for someone.
Okay.
$100 an hour. I make, I don't know, $200,000 a year. And then you see that project make $20 million a year. And then you see you're one of 3 people who built it. What would you do?
Like, honestly, at that point, it was your job. So I'd be like, you do have this, like, feeling in the back of your head of, like, man, like, I could have done this. But it is, like, a bittersweet situation.
Right. And so you know my mom, right? Let me copy her success. My success is, I'm not going to escape with this guy. I'm going to do it myself. And I saw this guy try to escape. He did a half-assed job. I would change these 5 things, and she did that. Or he, my dad did that, right? So my parents did that. So the idea is, like, if you keep grinding, but you did learn from success and failure. So in this case, Crimson Solutions, e-recruiting was a failure. Because I'll tell you the story of what happened after that. So what happened after that was I left the company. Jennifer Florin kept running it. They raised another $30 million after I leave. Seriously. So on paper, my equity was like 15%. I think it was like 15% to start. Became 10% when I left, 8%, 3%, 2%, and as I get more and more rounds of funding, they have these what they call anti-dilution clauses and all these things to protect the VCs and the people at the company, so they basically get diluted less. So, for example, let's say you get an investment and they put they get a third of the company. Well, the third of the company comes more from people who are outside the company. So the people at the company, they don't get a third taken away from them to give to the new people. They get a quarter taken to them, and then we give them like 40%. You know what I'm saying? Or even 50%, because we're not the company, and there's rights that you get. So basically, that's a way VCs can basically essentially screw you. And basically, when you leave the company, and this is why founders only own like 8% of the company when they go public. The most successful founders. Like I'll give you an example. Like Elon Musk. You know who Elon Musk is? He's a CEO of PayPal. When they went and they sold the company, how much do you think he owned of the company of PayPal?
I don't know, I would say like 30, 40.
1%.
Damn.
And he was the founder. And he had the most of all the founders. They all had about roughly 1%, a quarter percent of that stuff. And the VCs had everything else. Less than 1.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So think about it. You take the money from some guy, some person, and then you're going to need more money, you need more money, and that's the .com model. Right? You start with like a lot percentage as a founder, and as you get diluted, what happens is you work for the man at the end. You see that? So you gotta be careful when you take money from these VCs. You gotta make sure you're smart about it and you maintain control. And like today, VCs are much less like that. Like back then, there's only a few of them, and they had to do it. Well, they didn't have to do it. They just so they did, right? Because they get away with it. It's hard to get away with that today, but that's the game, my friend. Right? And
they were like very like predators. Like they have like this new idea, and they're like, "Hey, I'll fund you," and then they just end up taking over.
Well, but they also get burned by losing $22 million.
Yeah, well, they do take like most of the risk, but I mean,
yeah. So
still,
yeah, but like
it's disproportionate to the gains.
So how do you lose $22 million and live to tell about, right? So we lost $22 million as young kids who got other people's money that we lost. Okay, who got scammed there?
Both of you guys everybody in here got the ones that put in the money, and you guys who had a great idea.
Yeah, but the thing is, they had Acumen. They had 7 failures and 1 success, and that's how they roll. But think about your life. If they are so awesome or so good, like Andreessen Horowitz, YC, all these brand names, they get 1 out of 8 right.
Like 12.5% accuracy, like is
How many
great.
how many companies do you start in your life?
I've started one.
So
And I'm
so you're gonna fail,
pushing on
right?
that.
1 out of 8, unless you're
Pushing
super
on that
lucky.
one.
I did 4, and I failed into the 4th one, and this 5th one hopefully will be a 6. So the idea is that when you sign up to be an entrepreneur, you sign up for death.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you end up, you're more open and see, like, you're really in a I'm gonna make this work and let's see where it goes.
But it's actually not death if you're smart, because remember what I said.
No,
at
definitely.
24,
Yeah.
I was a VP somewhere. I was gonna make 200K, and I was gonna be the CTO or VP or wherever, and I was gonna be middle management. You see that? So you see, people don't understand. They talk about the failure, the $22 million, how we lost it. But you know how I see it? I see it as I won once instead of twice. Here's what I mean. I won because I had the chance.
Mm-hmm.
I won because I got the ability to learn. I won because
The whole experience must have been
I
awesome.
won because someone gave me the job to be leader when I didn't deserve it, and I get to learn on the job and make mistakes, and no one can yell at me because there's no one else above me. I learned by being, thought of as a leader and pretending I was a leader and bullshitting with confidence and having a stage every week, and then I learned from really good people who taught me how to code. I also learned, when to leave. I learned when to give up, but I also learned, when not to give up. And ultimately, I ended up a lot farther because I won a startup CTO job by saying yes when I was in a bunk bed, taking a nap, waking up. Welly, ciao. Thank you so much. You started my journey. One of my roommates. And he's an entrepreneur too today. So tell me, I'll tell you what happens to my friends. Like, so this is the happily ever after. So Seth moves to San Fran, becomes a patent lawyer. He loves his job and he's doing well there. Welly goes on and starts a company that does micro office renting, very similar to WeWork. It's actually called Micro Office. Actually, I think it's called Micro Office, and he's doing very well with real estate, and he's been doing that for a long time. Right? And so, just because you failed the first time, that doesn't mean that you can't get up, like my mom, my dad. After we failed the first time escaping Vietnam, you can start a new company. You can start a new boat. You can invite your friends. They can give you some money. You can invite some strangers. They'll give you some money. Maybe you lose that money, but maybe you win that money. But everyone signed up for a journey where you can go somewhere special, right? To go on a boat with a bunch of people that you trust, that you learn from, that maybe you don't trust and you break up with, but you also learn from the successes, right? Because we successfully did a bunch of things. We successfully sold customers. We successfully wrote some code that worked out. We successfully learned how to raise money. We successfully learned how to present ourselves and hire people and all that. And those successes are what you count. You shouldn't count the failure, right? So the way we failed was this: we had a bad plan because we had 2 phases that didn't make sense. Just to recap, so if you're a student and you just got a job from the Career Center, you're never going to come back to us except a couple years later. And by then, you're going to forget about us and we're not going to make any money off of you. And the Career Centers, we should have charged them more, or maybe we should have asked for more access to their students, and we could have, done a better job. Or we could have done, like becoming an Indeed.com or a Glassdoor or one of these other new companies. But the other lesson is never ever take your hands off the wheel. You came and you started the company so you can ride and run the boat and not work for the man. And then at the end of Crim Solutions, I was working for the man. I left. That's how you know when you have to leave.
So you,
right?
Well, you did stay true to whatever, your principles and the initial plan, which was your own independence.
Yeah.
So as soon as it wasn't going in that direction, there was thank you, thanks for the opportunity and everything, but I'm out.
Yeah, and we
did.
did gracefully, and I did consulting, and I hate it, but we'll talk about that next episode. Actually, I need to run, but hopefully, if you enjoy this talk, please subscribe. We'll get to Roberto maybe next episode and some of your journey.
Next episode.
Yeah, and I'd love to see where your muscles and your tattoos. Look at these muscles. Come on. We both got muscles, right? But I have no tattoos, so I don't look as hard as you. You look so much harder with tattoos.
You have to get tattoos, huh?
No, I'm never gonna get tattooed. I'm against tattoos.
Why not?
Well, because I don't want to look like a wrinkly idiot guy with a tattoo.
Like being a wrinkly old cool guy with tattoos.
Maybe, but I won't be cool. I may be wrinkly. But anyway, thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for supporting us. Subscribe, and we will tell you our journey, and hopefully you enjoy it and learn some stuff. And actually, some of the code and stuff I've heard some feedback that people want to do the webinar to learn how to code like we do, and actually learn for free, basically, how to become an internet startup entrepreneur and build all the tech behind it. And we'll have other stuff along the way. But thank you. And Roberto, anything to add? I'm sorry I didn't get to your childhood, because again, I want to see you.
It's fine. We'll get to my childhood has a lot more issues than you. Like, we'll get to that. Next episode, we can talk about it. And like Phuc, like you said, like we're here to help out. Honesty and transparency is kind of like one of the goals of this. And maybe you can learn from whatever mistakes we made and improve on it. And so, like, you don't have to.
Hey, don't learn from mistakes. Learn from successes, okay, man? Learn from our successes, okay?
Learn from our successes.
Learn the successes, even though you lost the war, the success of winning the battle, the many battles in the war of startups. And you have to learn from the battles you won and take that forward. I'll show you how I took it forward in the next episode when we talk about the second company, tuned. Right? And my consulting days and some of the other stuff and some of the successes. But that's a teaser. But thank you so much. What the Phuc? So much.
See you next time.
See you next time.